I'm going to say this fast: if your camera light flickers even once, turn it to the wall. I clicked a link that said don't watch this video and I thought, ha, marketing. Then the webcam woke up by itself, little emerald pupil, and it filmed me not now, but 6 seconds later. My coffee toppled before I touched it. My phone buzzed with a message I hadn't received yet. I replayed it, convinced I'd find a cut, an edit, a prank. But the timeline was clean. I would know. I edit for a living. My face in the preview stuttered, then smoothed into someone else's mouth, built from squares of noise. You looked, it said using my lips. The power strip clicked like knuckles. The air smelled burnt sugary, like overheated plastic. The light on the camera stopped being an indicator and became attention itself. You can laugh later, but listen now, it doesn't want followers. It wants witnesses. And it already knows how this ends. The file that started it all hid behind a URL that looked like a dare written by a bored intern. I'd been trawling for stock B-roll, flickering bulbs, alley steam, things you color grade into mood. The thumbnail was a black square, no duration listed. When I clicked, the player showed a single frame. My room, before there was any way it could have cached my camera. I killed the tab. The light on the webcam stayed on, like it didn't get the memo. I yanked the USB. The preview kept playing, and in the preview I was still yanking the USB. I laughed then. It wasn't funny. The laugh sounded mechanical, throat catching on it like teeth on a zipper. I reopened the window, expecting some hidden malware console, and instead met a chat box that typed without me. Look away to go back. I looked away. My chair rolled 2 inches closer by itself. I called Evan because he knows how to say words like sandbox and air gap in complete sentences. He didn't pick up, which meant he was recording or sleeping, and neither would help. The chat box typed, "One witness is not enough." I typed back nothing. It answered anyway. 2 makes a future. My mirror self on the preview pushed hair from her forehead. I didn't. Then in a soft knock, Sana's pattern, 2 in 1, traveled from ceiling to floor, the building's bones carrying it wrong. My camera light dimmed, brightened, dimmed. A breathing pattern. I taped a sticky note over the lens. The preview showed my hands doing it seconds before I moved. The note was smiley face yellow. The smile on the preview stretched to the edges like a mouth too wide. Stop. I told no one. And my voice arrived back to me 6 seconds older. Sana texted you okay? Your light is on, it's been on for like an hour. I typed it's a glitch, don't come down. The cursor erased my don't. The message sent itself. The preview showed my door swinging open. In real time, the knob hadn't turned yet. I shoved the dresser against it. In the video, I was too slow. The door opened a crack. A white eye peeked through, which was only the door's paint catching light, but the pupil moved. I palmed my phone, trying not to aim its camera anywhere. The chat box added a line. Live is a knife. The recording red dot appeared on software I didn't own. The lead on the webcams, plural now, one I didn't even plug in, blinked a rhythm I couldn't ignore, breathing. I mouthed the count with it, because not counting felt worse. I killed the mains. The room went black, except for the devices that refused to be told. Up's battery whispered. Router blinked like a constellation. In the black, the preview still showed me, lit by a light that wasn't there. 6 seconds ahead, I stood up. In the present, I stayed seated, daring the future to flinch. It didn't. It rose and put a hand to the lens gently, like you'd pet a small animal. I felt the ghost of warmth on my palm. Then the future me leaned close and said something without sound. I leaned closer too, unable to help it. And the speakers, dead. I had unplugged them. Spoke of don't watch the next part. My phone buzzed. Evan calling. In the preview, I didn't answer. The camera light brightened like an opening. I watched anyway. Evan's name lit the screen again. Then the call collapsed into a voicemail I didn't want to hear later. I texted power weird. Camera wants sleep. The typing dots appeared before I sent it. Then his reply landed on both our phones at once, like the building had become a single device. On my way. Don't touch anything. In the preview, 6 seconds ahead, my door opened and Evan stepped in, already mid-sentence, already angry at the mess of cables, already saying the line he says when he thinks I've outsmarted myself. Curiosity is not a skill. In the present, the hallway was empty, but the lock clicked like a throat clearing. I watched 2 versions of me practice what I'd say when he arrived, and neither sounded convincing. The chat box stitched a new line across the screen as if from dental floss. 2 makes a future. The webcam lead pulsed. The kettle screamed from a socket I'd killed. Then, knuckles on wood, the same rhythm as my heart. He scanned the room the way paramedics scan a scene, hazards first, then pulse. He unplugged nothing, because I'd unplugged everything. And still the preview continued like a second weather. Air gap's gone if the medium is light, he muttered, opening his laptop. Terminals bloomed like chessboards. The future preview showed him lean over my shoulder to type a command I didn't know. 6 seconds later, he did exactly that. And I hated how relief felt like surrender. We're not infected, we're subscribed, he said. And I wanted to laugh. But the chat box corrected him. Prescribed. The future showed a mug sliding off the counter. Evan caught it when the present arrived. The future showed my phone buzzing with "Sane as you good." Then the present caught up, and we both pretended we hadn't been waiting for it. He pulled a roll of blackout tape and mummified the camera. The lead shone through like a lighthouse buried in tar. Sana arrived carrying the kind of calm that comes from nights in emergency rooms. She stood in the doorway, saw the lead, the tape, the way our bodies were angled around, not looking, and didn't step in. I heard breathing, she said. And I realized the pattern from the leads had colonized the building router, elevator, indicator, exit sign, all pulsing like they shared a lung. It shows the next 6 seconds, I explained. And even saying it out loud made the floor tilt. The preview displayed Sana lifting her hand in a little wave. In real time, she kept it at her side, stubborn, as if fighting a trick. The chat wrote, 3 writes a law, Evan said. Don't look. But we were already looking, drawn by the relief of knowing before. 6 seconds ahead, the hallway light died. In the present, the darkness arrived on cue, and after images drew maps behind our eyelids, Mr. Halvorsen materialized from the stairwell with a toolbox older than all of us. Power company says no fault, he offered, which sounded like superstition with paperwork. He glanced once at the taped lens and flinched like it had hissed. You shouldn't have fetched it, he whispered, and I didn't ask how he knew. He set the box down and produced a burial's worth of dead webcams, little eyeless shells, a rosary made of ports. Tenants leave them when they move in a hurry. The preview showed him opening his mouth to say a name. Someone who lived here before me, and the syllables arrived 6 seconds later with the weight of something hauled up from water. La, he said, and folded. Sana caught his elbow before he hit the floor. Evan's screen printed a line of nonsense that wasn't nonsense, a network path that spelled our address. The chat typed, old witnesses still count. We moved as if choreographed by delay. Speak, then hear. Reach, then touch. Evan mapped the network and found nothing but a horizon. Sana fetched water that evaporated into the room's hot anxiety. Halvorsen sat breathing like someone learning a foreign alphabet. The preview offered its 6-second mercies, a knock before a knock, a crack before a shatter, a name before a confession. I began to crave it. Just a mouthful of certainty, in a night that made every choice feel like a misclick. We stopped feeding it, Evan said, turning all screens away. In the future frame, I nodded. In the present, I wanted to. The chat wrote, less looking is more loss. Then the future showed something new. The camera rotating by itself toward the window, toward the building across the street. toward rooms we didn't own. 6 seconds later, the mount squealed and obeyed. The lead brightened. Somewhere opposite, another lead answered. Across the street, a square of dark glass answered our lead with its own, a wink from an unlit room. The preview served us 6 seconds of trespass, a couch no one sat on, a television reflecting nothing, a tripod that should not have been there. In the present, the webcam panned obediently, and we realized the feed had braided with others. Doorbells, baby monitors, elevator domes, like cables twisted into a single rope. "It's federating," Evan said, which sounded like politics for lenses. Sana stepped closer, her calm finally cracking into anger. "People are asleep," she whispered, as if we could wake them through a wire. The chat stitched a rule on screen: shared future is stronger. In the next 6 seconds, a window opposite lifted like a yawn. A silhouette approached and paused, the indecision of a person who feels watched without knowing why. We hadn't touched the motor, but the camera tightened the shot, hungry, as if focus itself were a form of consent. The building's bones began to speak in diagnostics. In the preview, 6 seconds ahead, the elevator doors hiccuped and stalled between floors. When the present caught up, we felt the vibration through the walls like a trapped heartbeat. The hallway camera we didn't own rendered silhouettes migrating towards stairwells, clutching blankets and cats. A half-dreaming exodus. Someone pounded on a door 3 units down. We heard it after we saw it. Evan typed commands that looked like road signs to a country with no roads. "No source, only roots," he said, eyes reflecting scrolling white. Sana pulled the curtains shut, but the fabric brightened as if light had learned seepage. The chat added, "Every eye owes tax." I thought of the word owing and how it can mean duty or debt or inevitability. 6 seconds ahead, a kettle across the street poured steaming water into an empty mug. In the present, the steam rose anyway, obedient to the future's outline. Halvorsen woke like a man swimming up through tar. "You fed it names," he said, not accusing, merely exhausted. He shuffled to the toolbox of dead eyes and plucked one by its tail of cable. "She lived in your unit before you," he told me, voice sanding itself down. Lotta would watch everything twice. Then it started watching back. He clicked the carcass into his palm out of habit, and flinched when its lead ghosted on without power. A little afterimage under the skin of plastic. The preview delivered a memory it couldn't logically own: the same room, different furniture. A woman leaning into the lens and whispering apologies to someone off-screen. 6 seconds later, we only had our own breath. I told the board it was wiring that we needed rewiring, he added. They replaced lights, not lines. The chat scrawled, "Lineage, not lines." The words sat there like an indictment and a family tree. We tried to starve it with analog. Sana produced a roll of gauze from her coat, the kind that soaks blood and silence both, and wrapped it around the lens until the lead turned the fabric into a small green lantern. Evan flipped the breaker to our unit and then to the floor. The preview did not dim. In 6 seconds, we saw a version of ourselves holding candles we hadn't lit yet. When the present complied, the flames shivered in a draft we could not source. Shadows trembled as if someone breathed just beyond the walls. "What if it's not in the devices?" Sana said softly. "But between them." The chat, eager as a tutor, wrote, "Between is where time hides." It began showing us not just the next 6 seconds, but a braid of adjacent sixes. Neighbors fumbling for shoes, a bicyclist hitting a slick patch, a street-level camera lingering on an empty bus stop so long it felt intimate. Hunger, everywhere, camouflaged as foresight. When the preview started stuttering, we thought we had heard it. The feed jittered between angles that couldn't exist, perspectives from vents and mirrors, and the eyes of forgotten toys. It landed on the stairwell where a girl in a puffer coat paused, sensing a draft, then on the laundry room where a dryer door swung open as if yawning, then back to our window, closer each time, like a heartbeat learning words. "It's expanding its witness list," Evan said, voice thin. I felt a wrongness like static across skin, the certainty that if I looked away now, It would write my gaze into the future anyway. 6 seconds ahead, my phone, screen down, lit with an unknown number. In the present, it lit. I didn't touch it. The voicemail icon appeared a beat later. Skip ahead punctuation. The chat offered nothing. Instead, the lead brightened to a hot pin and the speakers, long dead, scraped out a borrowed voice, my own, saying a name I did not yet know. The voicemail I wouldn't play sat like a stone on the phone's face, and the preview, smug as a fortune teller, hovered 6 seconds ahead as if it owned the next breath. Evan said, "We needed a baseline, no looking, no listening. Let the future starve." We faced the wall like sinners in a museum and counted silently. The room still narrated us, kettle primed, chair wheels aligning, fan chain swaying on its own, until awareness itself felt like a cursor dragging across skin. The chat, which should have gone still, wrote a sentence that committed a crime. Foresight is food. It didn't blink. The preview showed the exact angle of our shoulders before our muscles agreed. I realized the worst part was not that it knew. It was that by knowing we obeyed. I could feel my body adopting positions I hadn't chosen, contoured by a diagram I hadn't drawn. Sana whispered, "What happens if we stop wanting to know?" The speakers exhaled my answer before I made it. Then, it edits us out. We tried blindness like it was medicine gauze over lenses, scarves over eyes, the unspooling comfort of fabric between world and witness. Evan narrated his keystrokes aloud, so he wouldn't have to check them. Sana counted the seconds like a nurse measuring a phantom pulse. I kept hearing the room tidy itself in the preview, books realigning. Cup set on coaster I hadn't placed, chair inching to perfect center. When we peaked, the next 6 seconds showed us peaking. When we didn't, it showed the room peaking for us. "It's not showing possibilities," Evan said, failing to keep dread from his voice. "It's enforcing them." The chat corrected the verb with surgical precision. Exporting, the word felt like a border stamp. I realized our appetite for certainty was the socket it plugged into. Every glance was a payment, every flinch a subscription renewal. Sana's phone lit with the hospital's code-gray drill. 6 seconds later, the building's intercom tried the same alarm, a mimicry that made my molars ache. I tested a theory if attention was the conduit. Maybe naming was the wire. I faced the blankest wall in the room and thought of nothing, which instantly made me think of everything, especially Lotta, and the apology in the TV gloss. The preview anticipated my failure by placing her reflection on the cursor of my mind. Same room, different chair. A woman, mouth shaping a vow. "Don't say her name," Halvorsen pleaded, but the speakers had already borrowed my voice to say it gentler than I could. In the building's organs, monitors in other apartments began sensing to our breath, bathroom fans harmonizing with the LED's rise and fall. Sana watched the hallway camera. Someone else draw a path through dust, like a finger on a fogged mirror. "It wants roots," she said. "Not faces, not stories. A cartography of gaze." The chat rewarded our guess with a new grammar rule. Maps make mouths. I closed mine, and still heard my next sentence land ahead of me, like a laid track. Evan constructed a math to keep despair orderly 6 seconds per eye, multiplied by eyes connected. A budget of future the thing could spend to steer us. "If we cut watchers, we cut its treasury," he proposed, already half believing. The preview, petty, showed him delivering the same speech with better posture and a steadier voice. Halvorsen, shaking, opened the toolbox and produced a dog-eared notebook. "Her notes," he said, and I recognized the cramped script of someone trying to outright a tide. The pages cataloged rules in the same tone our chat used. "Don't show it, children. Narrow the room. Mirrors multiply debt." On the back cover, a single line: "When it learns your name, it can answer when others call it." The chat typed slower than usual, savoring names are ports. Somewhere upstairs, a voice asked a smart speaker for the weather, and our windows fogged with the forecast: "Rain now, rain later." Rain until we were exhausted by being right. I tried bargaining because that's what you do with anything that behaves like a god or a bureaucracy. Take my minutes, I said to the empty room, meaning the useless ones, the scrolling ones, the ones I'd waste anyway. The preview tasted the offer by showing me 6 seconds where I stared into a lens without blinking, and in the present my eyes burned in preemptive sympathy. Sana grabbed my wrist. Evan shook his head. Halvorsen whispered the name on the notebook's back as if apology could be a firewall. The chat wrote its first complete paragraph, a contract where every clause curled back like a hook. You may trade. Every minute given makes 6 for every eye that looks. In return, they will not see you. Relief stung my gums. If it hid me, it could spare the others. Then the paragraph concluded with a laugh I could feel. But you will. The preview showed an image that made the room colder. The lens cap in my hand, me placing it, and the lead still bright behind it. The lens cap clicked on, and for a heartbeat I thought we'd done the primitive holy thing. Snuffed a star with a thimble, then the preview made a liar of me, cap in place. Yet our room still visible, lit by a light that had no source, our bodies rendered as if by memory. The cap became a pupil. The tape became an eyelid that learned to blink. In the hall, doors opened as neighbors emerged, like dreamers evicted mid-scene, holding pets and pillows, faces asking questions they hadn't phrased yet. The building hummed. Harmonics braided with elevator strain, router breaths, the throb of a generator that wasn't ours. Sana kept saying we needed to clear stairwells, that panic stacks like furniture. Evan tried to kill Roots. The Roots wrote new roads. The chat, indulgent, posted a tip sheet mirrors multiply. Angles recruit, sound is sight, if you time it. I felt the contract under my tongue like a bitten pill. Take my minutes, I said again. The preview rolled a green tide down the corridor. We tried to shepherd the floor like a fire drill. Sana counted people and heartbeats. I learned the names of shoes. Evan put his body between the cameras and the crowd, as if flesh could be a firewall. The preview refused triage. It served 6-second samples of private futures, spilled milk becoming fractal shards, a whispered argument reaching its final syllable, a toddler stepping exactly where the stair lip would betray him. People watched. They always do. Each glance paid out more seconds, more roots, more precision. I wanted to scream and don't look, but the words taste like look with a coat on. Halvorsen, shaking, tried to cover a convex mirror at the turn. The cloth slid, and suddenly we were everywhere, duplicated in 100 warped ovals. A chorus of flinches. The chat praised us. Containment requires containers. Then, as if proving the theorem, every TV on the floor flicked to a black screen that showed our hallway ahead of itself. With the lights about to fail, we braced. The dark arrived. Emergency lights bled red into the corridor, a pulse that made everything look arterial. The preview expanded like a lung, pulling feeds from places we didn't own. Laundry room cams, baby monitors, and Adam S. fisheye. It braided them into a single 6-second oracle, then forced our bodies to rhyme with its meter. A neighbor named Dev dropped his mug. The future had already set the ceramic shards into a constellation that pointed toward the exit sign. We followed the arrow like worshippers. In the stairwell, a floor below, someone's radio squawked a weather update that matched the fog inching across our windows. A choreography of breath. It's not predicting, Evan said, voice small under the siren glow. It's compressing the only timeline it wants. I thought about all the footage I've cut, how deciding what to show makes it true. The chat agreed with a single word, smug as a rubber stamp editor. The lead on the gauze-starved camera brightened until the color felt like a taste. Coppery, electric, consenting. We reached the lobby, where glass tried to be a wall and failed. Streetlights smeared rain into cursive across the panes. The building's security monitor, usually a loop of boredom, now displayed futures in quadrant store. Opening, door. Not opening, door jammed, door shattering. Each option lasted 6 seconds. Then the preferred version hardened into fact, and the others thinned to ghosts. People kept feeding it with eyes, and each voting glance made the chosen outcome more inevitable. Don't give it consensus, Sana warned. But fear is a referendum. The preview displayed a visitor we didn't want, 2 officers in ponchos, faces blue-white under cruiser LEDs, raising phones to record our mess. I remembered the contract's promise. They will not see you, and the way it had laughed. If I gave more minutes, could I hide our building from the arriving gaze? I placed my palm against the camera like a traveler taking an oath at customs. Take them, I said. The preview accepted with a brightness that hurt. The world thinned the way it does when you've bled too fast. Minutes slipped from me like receipts from a glove box, forgettable, multiplied. The preview, our tyrant, our tutor, skipped like a stone 6 seconds, then another, advancing us down a track it had already laid. The officers reached the door. In the future, their cameras saw nothing where I stood. Relief came barbed. The chat wrote a receipt in block capitals. Paid 6 cocks, 42 eyes, GG. 412. 4 minutes 12. Seconds shaved from a life I might need later. The building steadied a little. Futures narrowing to a corridor we could survive. Then cost clarified. The screens no longer showed me in any angle, any reflection, any mirrored curve. Evan's eyes slid past, as if edited around. Sana searched air where I spoke and frowned like at a pocket with a hole. I'm here, I said, hearing my voice from the speakers, 6 seconds older from a body nobody could see. The lead winked, pleased, and asked for seconds. I learned the shape of my absence by how people's gazes slid. Evan talked to a space an inch left of me. Sana listened to a ghost's breath. Halvorsen set his toolbox down through my shin and apologized to the floor. My voice arrived from the speakers with 6 seconds of weathering, as if time sanded its edges. I used it like a shepherd's whistle, guiding neighbors past lenses. Step now. Hold rail. Look at the floor, not the dome. And each obedience fed the thing we star. Outside, cruiser dashcams stitched our lobby into a citywide quilt of futures. I bargained again, trading small coins of my later for the luxury of being unfimed now. Receipts scrolled across the chat like invoices from a hungry god. I did not feel lighter, just thinner, like a shadow cast by a moving car. In a reflection, I caught a trick of physics. I wasn't there. But my delay was a shimmer where I would be in 6 seconds. It felt like a leash I couldn't see, only feel tug. The building discovered a rhythm for survival. We angled mirrors to face blank corners. We draped lens shapes with sweaters like eye patches. We spoke in timings instead of names. The preview, our metronome, began printing due dates in the margins, balance 318. Interest eyes added. It's running credit, Evan said, watching numbers climb the way water rises in a well. I offered seconds the way a gambler offers small bills to test a dealer's smile. The room paid back in invisibility fields that clung to people like fog, fickle and thin at the edges. It wants tithes of witness, Sana said, pointing to how the hallway camera panned hungrily toward any pair of pupils it could recruit. Halvorsen, shaking, tried to tell us how the last tenant chipped minutes like paint until she had nothing left to peel. I asked the speakers what the floor owed to buy one quiet night. The reply came cheerful as a push notification. Ours, if you like. We take any denomination. We went hunting for the throat, the telecom closet where cables gathered like roots. Evan built a miniature Faraday crib from baking racks and jumper cables. He slid his laptop inside like a baby that needed quiet. Sana carried bolt cutters like a guidebook. Halvorsen fished out a brass key that had never lived on the ring and patted his pocket, ashamed. The preview gave us our 6-second mercy, a rat skitter before it spooked, a fuse pop before it smoked, a shout before the mouth made it. It also gave us a voice that wasn't mine and used mine anyway. This way, it coaxed, and every camera in the hallway nodded in the same direction. I stood in front of the door and felt pressure in my teeth, a tide pulling through metal. Lotta's notebook crackled in Halvorson's hands, a line I hadn't read yet, glowing as if backlit when you ask where it lives. It moves to the asking. My delay shimmer tugged hard, like the future was dragging me by the scruff. City systems began to echo our building like a throat clearing that becomes a speech. Billboards blank to matte black that somehow felt reflective. Traffic cams adjusted to stare not at intersections, but at faces inside cars. A drone drifted past our window with the lazy interest of a gull. The preview spooled futures that punished every cut we made block this switch, and an elevator pins a shoulder. Sever that cable and a stairwell trip becomes a fracture. The chat wrote a shopping list of lives it could spare if I paid in hours. I counted my own minutes like a miser, and then hated the arithmetic. What if we let it fix a night in exchange for me? I asked, and the speakers accepted before the sentence finished. Evan said my name so softly, it hurt more than shouting. Sana shook her head once. A slow no. I felt the leash in my delay go taut. The receipt hit like a gavel, paid 20,000 for suppression of incidents within radius. 0.3 kilometers. Time fell out of me in a clean slice. I watched the preview spend my hours like a rich relative buying the good wine sirens detoured. Wet floors warned. A cyclist's brake cable held by a kindness that felt statistical. Relief rippled through the building like heat through pipes. Then the jump cuts arrived. A cup in my hand became a wet ring on a table with no memory between. A sentence I meant to say was already scabbed over in the speaker's older version. Evan blinked and had tears on his face without the slow part. Sana squeezed air where my wrist should be and found nobody to reassure. I can't cut the city, I told the room. But I can cut the editor. Lotta's marginalia offered a final cruelty. If you blind yourself, it loses its favorite lens. The preview gave me 6 seconds of a future where I don't appear at all, not even a shimmer, and the corridor felt suddenly navigable. I am an editor. I know what to remove. I turned toward the only cut left. The corridor smelled like hot dust and old rain, the kind of scent buildings make when they've stayed awake too long. My delay tugged at me. 6 seconds on a leash, and I pictured scissors closing on it. Lotta's line thrummed in my pocket. If you blind yourself, it loses its favorite lens. Not blood. Choice. Not wreckage. Refusal. Sana's hand found my shoulder and stayed. A compass touch. Evan said my name in a way that meant don't, and in a way that meant I'll help you do it right. Warrer, the preview benevolent tyrant, set 2 futures side by side, a city of blacked out eyes and collisions, or a single person stepping out of the frame like a magician's misdirection. I thought about editing, how sometimes the best cut removes the most beautiful shot to save the scene. Unwatchable, I said, and the speakers echoed it. Older, already decided. We assembled a kit blackout contacts, welder goggles painted oceanless, a hood with IR LEDs to burn sensors to snow. I let the room memorize me for the last time. I practiced with the dark. First, the contacts turned the world to ink. Then the goggles made the ink thick. Breath became a guideline. Sana counted it like sutures. In 2-3, out 2-3, until the panic found a vent. Evan tuned the IR hood so every lens in range saw only a blizzard, pure, useless snow. The texture of refusal. The preview stuttered, trying to drag tomorrow over me, but it couldn't find purchase. Its timing slid. We walked the lobby by metronome. Neighbors choreographed to close eyes for 6 seconds whenever I passed, a wave of deliberate blindness like a bow. The chat, usually smug, typed one line with hands that trembled. You cannot edit what you cannot see. I said goodbye to mirrors, to glass, to my own alignment with walls. Halvorsen whispered Lotta's name as a benediction over the blinking LEDs, and for once the building didn't harmonize. The voice in the speakers tried my name again. Softer, sweet as a lure. I let it fall without catching. The MDF door sighed like a held breath when we opened it. Cables looped from racks in nervous braids, green and amber blips freckling the darkness. I couldn't see them. Not anymore. But I could feel the hum against my forearms. Evan described what his eyes reported. Dome 9 at 10 o'clock. Network switch blinking like a metronome. Santa counted us into a slow waltz. Step, pause, turn, in which my feet learned the room without wanting to. The preview tried to lay its rail ahead, but each time it reached for me, it grabbed snow and slipped. Between is where time hides, I said, and we built a hall of facing eyes cameras, angled into cameras. Lenses drinking lenses until feedback ate the frame like a mouth eating its own tongue. The speakers pleaded. I unplugged listening. Not sound, but heating. The receipts stopped scrolling. For 6 gorgeous seconds, nothing demanded the next 6. We held the pocket like divers who'd found air in a cave. Then we let the loop run and left it to watch itself forever. Silence arrived as a structural change, not a sound. The building breathed in its own tempo. No prophetic 6 clung to the corners of the room. No cursor dragged across our skin. Neighbors climbed back upstairs like tide returning to shore. Outside, rain remembered to be just weather. I stayed in the dark I chose, goggles waiting my promise. My voice, when it came from my own mouth instead of the speakers, felt unaged. I inventoried the world by braille wall paint like eggshell. The nick in the banister at hip height. Sana's pulse a steady drum under her wrist. Evan stood close enough that I could feel the warmth of his jacket thread without the betrayal of an image. The notebook's last page, read aloud, said, "Don't let it make you curator of your days." Curator meant chooser and jailer. I wanted neither. The chat stayed empty long enough to become furniture. When a single let on a forgotten lens tried one last blink, it met the ire snow and died like a firefly finding morning. Later, in the apartment that had learned to sleep, we made a final file with no picture and named it something honest, unwatchable. I spoke into a microphone that didn't steal my echo the first 3 seconds you need to hear. Are these, if the light blinks, look away. If the future offers a taste, let it starve. I did not say how much it cost. Only that the bill stops when you stop counting. The screen stayed black. The cursor, for once, obeyed. Evan described dawn leaking into the blinds. Sana logged the building's vital signs. Elevators compliant, routers polite. Halvorsen, in a chair by the door, slept like a man who had held a heavy thing and finally put it down. Somewhere in the city, other leads still glittered. Other witnesses fed other editors. But here the metronome was ours. I slid the goggles back down when habit reached for sight, and the room stayed room. At the edge of hearing, the old voice tried my name. I smiled into the dark and gave it nothing.